Good morning. What a great way to start the video, sculling a sip of water. Happy Friday if you're in Australia, the Southern Hemisphere, and happy Valentine's Day. It's the 14th. So hope you're doing something beautiful with some loved ones today, or celebrating that love for yourself if that's what floats your boat. I've been with my partner for 16 years, so I have to admit we don't do much for Valentine's Day. But anyway, hi, Kristen. Hi, Emma. Good to see you guys here. What's going on? What are you guys up to? I wanted to chat today about pricing, and I just realized that it's something I don't think I've ever talked about in a live like this. So I'm excited to have a chat. Just, hey, Dee, I just wanted to chat a couple of things for you to create some shifts and walk away and think about with your pricing. So this is not about how to set your prices, because I can't advise everyone on an individual basis on that, but this is around the strategy and the mindset and some questions and things to think about when you go off and set your prices, because it's a conversation. As always, I'm often inspired for these lives from conversations I've had with people recently. So over the past maybe 1 to 2 weeks, a couple of people, hey, Kristen, say hi. It's so good to see you here. I had a conversation, hey, Kiara, with a couple of different people, and it was around the mindset really and the strategy around their pricing. So there were comments like, people can't afford my services. Just say your coaching program, I don't know, costs $997. I'm just making up something. But then they're like, no one has $997 sitting in their bank account to pay me. So some thinking around that. And another one that I got was, I don't even know how I'm going to be able to go full time in my business with like the way like my prices are and the structure. Like there just literally isn't enough time to make the money to go full time. So they all kind of prompted me to have this conversation around pricing. Hey Dee, good to see you, which I wanted to share with you today. So I believe pricing is, I reckon it's just as much mindset as it is strategy, and maybe even more mindset than strategy. So that's what I wanted to chat about today, and share some kind of stories and examples and things I've seen to kind of give the evidence, because I know for a lot of people, before they've signed maybe their first client, or if you're in the stages of working towards signing your first client, one of the really common objections that comes up with coaching is people saying, I can't afford it. Right? It's something we all hear. It's something I still hear to this day. It's just a common objection people say. And often it's driven by fear, other stuff going on behind the scenes. Because if someone's booked a call with you and is looking for help, they usually have a way to make it work. So not saying that there aren't people that literally cannot afford coaching. Of course there are. But I just don't find that they will book a discovery call or be pursuing an interest in talking with you about working together without being able to in some way afford it. Like it's like going into, I don't know, Harvey Norman, Apple, somewhere, and like browsing the, I bought a new phone this week. So like browsing the phone, knowing I want a new phone, walking into the store, talking to the salesperson, then being like, oh, well, I love the phone, but I can't afford it. So like, why did I actually go in there that day? And I know sometimes we window shop. It's not always the best example, but I think you know what I'm saying there. So let's dive in. So I've realized I really like to watch videos that are 20 minutes or less. Like then I will literally watch them. Whereas once they creep over 20 minutes, I usually don't watch them. So my aim is to keep these 20 minutes or less going forward. So if you guys have questions about pricing, strategy, things resonate with you, I'd love to make this super interactive. So drop your questions, let me know. So let's chat about the first thing, is people can't afford my services, okay? I believe fully it comes down to value, a value proposition, right? Sometimes people literally, they say they can't afford it when they don't see the value. So it's like, how do I explain this? I don't know. If you're comparing two different products, right? Often people will pay more for the one that they perceive to be more value, right? So when someone says they can't afford the services, but they're like engaged in a conversation with you about working together, I often think there's more going on. And for some reason they're either there's fear of investing, there's fear of showing up for themselves, there's fear of like going through the coaching process, or they haven't been sold on the value, right? So there's a question mark over the value on like whether this is really the thing to solve their problem. And I think that comes up a lot when we sell coaching services versus selling a result, okay? So when I talk with you guys, and if any of you have had calls with me or you're a client of mine, you'll know like I'm very focused on the result. What's the result you help your clients achieve, right? So, you know, I work with people where it's losing weight, where it's, you know, completely changing their identity and, you know, cutting feelings of like overwhelm and stress and anxiety and being able to move forward. I work with other business coaches similar to me, where it's about signing clients, setting up the foundations of your business, like very clear results. And I find when we don't have that clear result that we're selling to people, but we're just selling something more like, oh, it's a personal transformation journey, or it's, I don't know, a spiritual kind of upgrade. I don't know, I'm just making stuff up. Like that's when people aren't necessarily going to invest, because it feels a lot more of like a luxury, I think. Whereas if you're like, I will help you lose those last 5 kilos that you are just struggling to budge, or I will help you set up the foundations for your business and have everything in place to sign your first client and get out there and confidently market yourself. If you're selling something like, I will get you out of the treadmill of feeling like you're just surviving as a mum and, you know, breaking free of stress, overwhelm, and, you know, completely feeling a whole new way. That's the thing people want to buy, right? So when they see that, they start to see the value, right? Because my experience is if someone values the result enough, they will often shuffle their budget around or find a way to make it work. So does that make sense? Is there any questions on that? Because that was the kind of first thing I wanted to talk to. I've always got to make sure to scroll down. Beautiful. So people often say to me, like even yesterday, just as some examples, because this is something I experience a lot too, and this is why I believe it's a sales objection to overcome versus like a truth. I had a call with a woman yesterday who wrote in the pre-coaching questionnaire, like she did one of my free narrow your niche calls. So when you do free calls like that, you do attract people who sometimes do have less ability to pay. It's not necessarily a discovery call, it's a free value-based call. And she wrote in the questionnaire before we had the call together that she was currently unemployed and she wouldn't have the funds to pursue anything further after the call. And I'm like, cool, that's fine. We're just going to work through your niche, right? So we did the call, she did the niche, and then at the end she's like, so how can we take this further? Like, how can we take the next step, right? Because she got so much value off the call, it was no brainer for her in some way to find the money and reshuffle around to make it work. So that's where I've seen the evidence time and time again, where when people experience great value and see how what you're offering moves them closer to what they want, I believe that a lot of people can find a way to make it work. So I want to share that with you because it's just a mindset shift. If someone sees the value in what I'm offering, of course they're going to find a way to make it work. It might not be tomorrow, it might be in 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 3 months, but like most people do have some ability to shuffle things around, right? So I just wanted to share that with you as examples because it's something I experience a lot too. And it's funny how as my mindset has like taken it as like, look, if someone literally does not have the money to pay, that's fine. Like I'm not going to ask them to like, you know, go out and do something crazy, but it just showcases to me that a lot of time where someone sees the value in something, they will find a way to make it work. Most of my clients tell me like, oh, this is a big stretch, or oh, this feels uncomfortable, but I want to make it work. I want to find a way anyway because I want to continue working with you, right? So it's just something to think about. So Kristen said, I just drafted a post on exactly this. What we're selling isn't really the thing, it's the feelings behind it. Exactly, right? So it's either a result, like something, sometimes it's very tangible and sometimes it's very feelings based, right? There's a feeling, like everyone wants something because of the feeling underneath it. I 100% believe that. We want more money to feel more freedom. We want more clients to feel more successful. we want to lose weight to feel like sexy and radiant and vibrant and amazing, like all of the things, right? So it's like touching into those. It's like, what's the result they want and what's the feeling? And when you market to that and show how you help them get that, that's very different to going like, oh, we'll go on a journey together of 6 coaching sessions and see what happens, right? Like, it's just an interesting shift. And I just want to invite you guys to think about that. Okay. The next thing that came up a few times was like, no one has $1,500 sitting in their bank account to pay me. Okay. No one has the exact amount of my coaching program sitting in their bank account allocated for coaching. And do you know what? I agree with that. No one does. No one's got like, oh, I've got $2,000 just sitting there waiting to pay my next coach. Like, no. I actually believe that is kind of true, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't mean that people won't find a way or won't take up the payment plan or won't shuffle things around because of that value thing. If you have been sitting stuck on a problem for like 6 months or a year or even 3 months or whatever, and you suddenly see the solution, the thing is that's worth so much. Like, if I had been, sitting, I'll use my business as an example rather than sort of give other people's businesses away. If I'd been sitting, or if you as one of my potential clients had been sitting stuck on your niche, this is what people tell me a lot, for quite a few months, and then we sit down and have a 30-minute call together and it's solid and done and you can move forward. And then you find, oh, the next thing I'm stuck on is my content, and we sit down together for an intensive and solve that and you're able to move forward. Like, that's often worth so much more than what you pay for it. Right, just like if I'd been struggling to lose weight for a year and maybe I'd paid for a gym membership and I'd paid for a nutritionist and I'd gone to a naturopath and like all of these things, people lying in bed awake going like, I would pay anything to have this solved, right? Like, and I would pay anything to quit my job next week. I would pay anything to not feel so stressed out all the time. I would pay anything to be in control of my finances. Like, people literally are lying in bed thinking that. I would pay anything. I remember when I was suffering like really bad anxiety, I'd be like, I would do anything to have this solved for me, right? So it's like, when someone's in it, the value is so much worth it. So it's like, if I could pay $1,500 or $2,000 or whatever it is to have this problem solved, when it's like taking over your life, like, of course you would, because it's like going to be done and dusted, right? If I could pay $1,500 to lose those last 4 kilos and know that going forward, it's just not a thing anymore, like, of course I'd pay that. If I could hire Laura and pay $5,000 to work with her, but that taught me how to make $5,000 like over the next 6 months each month, like, of course I'd do that. Like, the value is like, the investment is worth so much more, right? So anyway, I went off a little bit of a tangent there. So no one has the money sitting in the bank account. I've often found this to be true. I didn't have the money sitting in my bank account to pay my current coach. I've never had it sitting in my bank account to pay any of my coaches. Even my very first coach, I sold stuff to pay for the coaching fee. Like, I didn't have it. I was like, no, what can I sell? How can I make this happen? My current coach now, like, I have to generate the funds in my business each month to pay her. So like, I find a way and I trust myself to come up with it. And I find it's the same for a lot of my clients. They're initially in the discovery call saying like, oh, this is a stretch and I don't have the funds available. But when they decide that's what they want, they find a way to make it work. Like, I even had a client who signed up to work with me this week, which was super exciting. And I think she said somewhere along the line, like, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to pull the money together yet, right? She didn't know, but she found a way because she ended up paying up front, right? So like, there's always a way that people can find it, right? So that's why we offer payment plans. That's why sometimes maybe you offer to take a deposit for people to start in a few weeks or next month or whatever. Like, there's really ways that you can help people facilitate, because I think the most important thing we want to help people get to is the decision. Are they in or are they out? Like, that's all. So by helping them facilitate that, once they decide they're in, I've found most people will find a way to make it work, even if they don't know what the answer is right now. It's 100% the same for you. As long as you're showcasing the value, showcasing the results that you get for them, like, most people can find a way to make it work, and especially like payment plans and all of that kind of stuff. So any questions on that? I would love to hear if you guys have any questions on that. What are your thoughts? Is that resonating? Let me know. Silence. Just kidding. So the other thing that happens a lot is we price based on our perception of what people can pay, or we bring all of our own money mindset stuff to our pricing. So what that results in a lot of the time is underpricing. So I know when I first started business coaching, I just was not owning the value I brought to the experience. I was undercharging so bad, like, and it results in things like resentment, stress, burnout, like this thing of like not actually being able to go full time in your business because you can't literally make enough. And I've often found the more you step into your value and raise your prices to align with that, often you attract in more people. It's so funny. Like, it's so interesting when you step into that and back yourself, how the people who need what you have to offer really step in and like decide that they're willing to make that work too. Oh, there's some comments here. Yes, totally. And I've done this myself, made the funds happen to move forward, right? I think we've all got an example of ourselves where we can think of a time where we're like, oh, I don't know if I can afford this, where it's really like, I don't know how to shuffle the money around, or I don't know how to tell my husband about this, or I don't know, like, can I really invest this amount of money in myself? Like, that's what all of it really means. Even like a new iPhone, you know, often we're like sitting there like putting it off, and it's like when you know you need it, there's a way, you find a way to make it work. Have you ever had that feeling where you're like, oh, like I really need that thing, and probably a day before you didn't even know like how you'd ever make that work, but once you know you needed it, you found a solution. Like there's always a solution there. Kiara says, yes, it's resonating. I was actually considering lowering my prices to see if I could get clients. Right, which is so interesting, because that's, to me, it's like that's your mindset, right? Like that's a part of like, do I believe that I can get clients? Do I believe in the value of what I bring? Do I believe that the results are worth the price I'm charging? Like they're the questions to start thinking about, because more often than not, sometimes we're not doing the work that we need to be doing to bring in enough people, right? So, you know, our brain is telling us, oh, your prices are too high. Whereas the actual answer might be like, I'm not actually putting myself out there enough to get enough eyes for, you know, in some ways it's a number game, right? Like there is a certain amount of people that need to see you and a percentage of them buy. If you're literally not getting in front of the number of people to see you, the right number of people can't buy. And that actually really has nothing to do with the prices, right? But sometimes our brain's like, oh, maybe I'll lower my prices and I won't have to go out and market myself. Or like maybe if I lower my prices, the people will just find me, or the sales process will be easier. And I've just found like that's not always the case. There is a point sometimes where like maybe your prices have skyrocketed outside of the marketplace. I know, Kiara, that's not you. Like I think it's like, how do I get this seen by more people so that I'm having more sales conversations? Because more sales conversations equals more sales, right? So that's the question. And our brain's wild. It's like, oh, maybe you're not good enough. Maybe I have charged too high. Maybe people don't see the value. And it's like, actually, no, just not enough people are seeing it right now, right? So like, it's interesting to think about and just to look and witness when you can. So if you are having that question mark, like, I don't know if I could ever go full time with this, you probably need to raise your prices. Because I had a conversation with someone recently and I was like, you know, over the course of a year, how many clients do you need to work with? And if it's kind of like creeping up way beyond 50, if you're doing like coaching programs, it's going to be really challenging in terms of like your energy levels, in terms of sustainability, because there's always gaps and rollovers and, you know, people missing a week because they're sick, or you missing a week because you're sick. So like the more and more people you need to work with to fill out a full-time roster, the more kind of, what's the word? Like risk, is it risk? Like as soon as one thing just kind of shifts a little bit, if someone starts 2 weeks later than you expected, that's 2 weeks without the revenue coming through. When you're working with 60 people over a year, like the chances of that happening are sort of higher, right? So, and not to mention, like, how do you schedule in 60 people across the course of a year? Like, is there literally enough time? Given when you run your own business, there is so much other work to be done besides working with your clients. I mean, there's behind the scenes work and preparation for your client calls. There's the marketing, there's all the emails, there's the invoicing, like all the social media, like there's just so many things. So like literally you need to map out your time and go like, with my current prices and the time I have available and the time I need to do like servicing my client things, is there literally enough time to make the income that I want? If the answer is like no to that, then that's an indicator that your prices are probably too low, okay? And if you feel like I couldn't possibly raise my prices, that's the opportunity to do the mindset work, because that's showing you like, I'm not owning my value. I don't believe in my ability to deliver results with my clients, you know, all of those kinds of things. Like when you're questioning that, people reflect it back to, if you're like, oh, I couldn't possibly charge this, like why? Because you aren't owning your value. You don't believe that you're going to get the results. You don't have a clear enough result that you help people work with. All of that really connects, right? So just some things I really wanted to invite you guys to think about, because pricing is so much more mindset than it is, you know, strategy. Like, yes, there's a strategy and, you know, like making sure that your package is designed to get your clients the best results and, you know, pricing it up based on that. But so much of it is mindset. Am I in full belief in myself as a coach? Do I believe that I've created a program that helps people get the results that they want? Do I believe in my ability to get those results working with people, right? And my coach gave me such a good example, because I think sometimes in coaching, this will be like really helpful, is we hold ourselves to such like a high level of standard. 100% of my clients must get this exact result. And we think about like a lawyer. When you hire a lawyer to go and work on your case in the legal system, right? Does a lawyer win every single case? No, but we hire a lawyer that we know either, you know, wins more cases than they loses, puts in the right, you know, like the work and gets the best outcome they can for us given the entire circumstances, because everyone brings completely different circumstances to coaching, right? So someone who's already like slotting in on the highway, I like to think of it like further along than someone else. Like if someone, for example, you know, if someone was working with me and they were starting from like a standing start, no business, never done any coaching, never done anything, like maybe in 3 months signing a client for them is like an outstanding result, right? For someone else who's already been like working at it for a while, like has some of the things better down, already has a couple of clients, like getting booked out for them in 3 months is an amazing outcome, right? So like the outcome we need to deliver for each person is different, right? Tailored on their circumstances. So I hope that's just a nice little permission piece, is like, have I framed this up so that people can get the best results given their circumstances, right? And move towards the goal that they want. I think it's important that we are focused on getting results for our clients, but we also have that little bit of recognizing that everyone's different. Everyone's starting from a different point. So I don't know. I hope that helps, just in that permission piece, because that's the thing I think we get stuck on, is like, how can I get every single person that ever works with me, no matter what they're bringing to the table, to get like the most astonishing, amazing, fantastic results? And the answer is like that the most amazing, astonishing, incredible results are different for every person based on where they're starting from. So any questions on pricing, I would love to just let me know if you've got any specific questions, because I wanted to give some mindset kind of shifts and things to think about here. But if you've got any questions, let me know before I wrap. So Kristen says, I worked with a client on this recently. She had started out with prices so low, she was struggling to increase her prices that showed her real value, and it was all mindset. Exactly. She was literally booked out, but was fearful that if she increased her prices, she would lose business, right? And, you know, I had a client very similar to this that I spoke to recently as well. And the thing is, like, if they're completely booked out and they're like burning out, you know, sometimes being booked out at low prices, not sometimes, often, is starting to impact your life. You know, it's a lot of stress, burnout, resentment, like just this feeling of like constant hamster wheel. So like if she raised her prices, like, yes, maybe she would lose some business, but that's a good thing, because she could still very well be ahead, right? Like if everyone was paying $100 an hour, I'm just making up a number here, and she increased it to $110 an hour, so it's a 10% increase, she could lose 10% of her clients and still be making the same amount of money. So she'd free up more time, right? So like sometimes that is a good outcome, right? But I think, and it's, that fear, it's the fear that's driving our actions rather than like the strategy, or rather than like what we believe is possible, right? So, you know, if you asked me a few years ago if I'd be sitting here like charging the prices I charge now and working with people on the level I work with now and like making the monthly income that I'm making now, like I would have been like, oh, I don't think that's possible for me, right? But like we grow into it too, right? But we have to be looking at that. We have to be looking at like, am I constantly working to own my value, stand up in my belief? Because if we don't do that, we'll never be raising our prices, right? Exactly as your client's saying, we're working from fear rather than like belief and possibility. So Kristen said, exactly, just makes room for the clients who will pay the new price. Exactly, right? And often, how do I say this in a nice way? She may experience that she loses some of her more difficult clients, because sometimes like the people in this kind of thing, like she's probably like an overgiver and really delivering a really high value of service. And there's some people who are just like, when you don't value yourself, they're not valuing you either. So when you increase your prices, you kind of, those people drop away because you're like, no, I'm stepping up and owning my value. It's like a boundary or like a line in the sand. And you do lose people that can be a bit more difficult to work with or who aren't the right fit, and you're attracting in more of them. So that's such a good example. Thank you. And I think many of us can see that example. And I know when I increased my prices, when I increased my prices at strategic points, but I can remember a very distinct time where like I was kind of struggling to sign some clients, and I felt like my prices were really low. Like are they even really worth anything? Like blah, 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 all the stories. And when I worked on that, and then my prices were so low, I actually doubled them. More clients came in than I was working with when they were lower. Because when you step into your value and you value yourself, you attract people who value themselves too and who are willing to invest. Like it's wild how everything gets mirrored back to you. Just a little insight. So I hope that helps. I hope there's some stuff. I know this wasn't like a do this kind of discussion. It was more like things to think about and the mindset. But I think it's super important, because if the mindset's not aligned, the pricing, I feel like, is not going to be aligned, and it struggles with either conversions, getting people onto calls, even marketing yourself sometimes when you don't believe in the price that you've set. So just a beautiful conversation to have and some things to think about. So I hope that helps. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I wanted to share this and I forgot to at the start. So gratefully, my calendar is booking out a lot over the next couple of months. So I'm still offering some of the free narrow your niche calls, but they're really limited. So I've dropped the link there. If you haven't had one, please book one in, because they're becoming more limited than they have been, because my calendar, I'm super excited, is already booking into April, which is wild to think about. But yeah, I'd love to have a chat with you about your niche and, you know, pulling through that bio and really stepping into your value. Once you know that niche, that's the foundation to setting the result, to setting your prices, to doing all the things. So it's a beautiful starting point if we haven't done that. And I know I've done it with quite a few women in this group, which is super exciting. So I'm going to love you and leave you there, beautiful women. I hope you have a beautiful Valentine's Day. If whatever you choose to do to celebrate it, go out with your girlfriends, with your partner, take yourself for some self-care, self-love time, whatever it is. And I'm excited to see you again soon next week, and happy Friday. Enjoy your day. Loves. Bye.